sort of concluding what Brian said, it's a Gothic style building, neo-Gothic actually, and in Gothic times you had cathedrals, and you know cathedrals have flying buttresses to hold that brick together. What this building has instead is this internal bearing wall system. And what that does is basically supports the building, which allows us to do anything we want along the perimeter, but limits what we can do along the corridor. Once again, whatever's in red is new, whatever's in black is existing. This is an option we have, we call it the athletic option for the ground floor. And basically you come into the blue area, which I call a community center. And there's an atrium here to form a grander entrance, if you will, that will let you appreciate the grand staircase that exists and hopefully the skylight above. Here you have your main reception with exhibit rooms on either side. There's security and coat rooms here. And when you walk down here, you have an eatery. You may notice these ramping, there's ramps all over the place, there's ramps outside here. That's all been added to make it code compliant. And I'm still trying to figure out some ramping details for here, but basically these are two openings in the building. And what I've done is put in sports fields in each one. You'll notice in red, it's a basketball field. I don't know if you can see clearly, there's a blue line here, that's a tennis court. So it's kind of anticipating what you could do with those spaces. There's some things that we would have to work out, how to treat windows, etc. But in principle, you could do athletics here. We've also had a request for a turf field. We'll get into that at the end of the presentation. But in response to that, there's a sports assembly room and an office up here. The rest of the space is allocated largely to the recreation department, which has requested filmmaking, photography. This is a game room with table tennis, billiards, that sort of thing. And this pink area here is actually a children's center. And what we're proposing here is an admin area for staff, a special needs room, enrichment rooms. There's a indoor playground and music rooms. So these are existing bathrooms which we would be restoring. We have bathrooms here. As far as elevator for vertical transportation, we've added one centrally located. There are two in the building now. These would have to be replaced with larger models to meet code, but we've retained them as well. Brian, can you advance?
What's that?
Can you advance the slide? Sure. That way I'm not walking back and forth. All right. So we go here. Okay? Yeah, don't. This is where I want to be. The green is athletic facilities, and if we take that scheme, we bring it down to the lower level. I'm purposely not calling it a basement, but a lower level, because it has wide window exposure, and even though it's partially submerged, it doesn't really have that feel. We have a huge weight room here. This is a rare area in the building with a wide expanse of open space. You see there is still columns that were in place. Then again, with some partial demolition, we have bathrooms and locker rooms. We have storage rooms. There's a yoga room, exercise room, cardio. So we have these facilities all dedicated to sports. Over here we have some pickleball courts. And the rest, what you see in gray, is mechanical, electrical, and IT to service the whole building. There's an emergency management wing, which we've maintained here. It was explained to us that when there's an emergency in the village, like Hurricane Sandy, and people come from other states or even Canada or whatever to help out. They need a place to meet and work. So we kind of dedicated this portion to it. Next slide. Okay, we said that was an option. There's another option where we take the open area and we create a theater. There's a lack of theatrical space here in Garden City. We've been talking with dance groups and we're starting our dialogue with theater groups, etc. But this can accommodate a minimum of 300 and I think up to 330. So it's a good-sized theater, 30-foot deep stage with theatrical support space directly behind the stage. This would be a green room. And we took our model for this as the Platform Theater in Port Washington, which was a similarly renovated school that was converted to community use. And we studied the theater requirements, what they did right, what they didn't, and we tried to correct it. There's toilet rooms, but the rest of the space then allocates back to the community center, which I described earlier as 2 exhibit rooms, reception, atrium, that all stays the same, a little gift shop. When you walk into here is the eatery. In the lower level is the kitchen. That's the existing kitchen and cafeteria of the school. So it's a matter of restoring what was there. This is another option where instead of sports or theater, what we put in there is an outdoor courtyard. And we thought, you know, it'd be a beautiful evening out. If you go to the theater, you get a bite to eat, you sit here and eat it. It's something you could do, or you could pick up your kid, he's still doing filmmaking, you're sitting here waiting for him to meet. It becomes a secondary space that I think will be used and appreciated. These are options. In this case, we have a vestibule to the theater with lighting and sound, an ADA toilet. Here, we have a pergola. So there's like a courtyard entry into the building. Brian?
Sure. Just want to add, Will, this is where we talked about we want to interlace some things. When I was talking before about it's an interiors job, but we have some intermediary construction. We'll just use, you got the basketball courts and the theater. This is as complex as it gets. But the benefits here are, you've got surrounding bearing walls, which can be used to fly in steel to support the theater. We can either go down into the ground and excavate and lay it in on footings and foundations, or we can actually let it sit above that on steel. The roof, again, simple. We fly in steel. I can see the steel erection for a project like this being 4 weeks just to get that structure done, being that it's not that heavy in construction or complexity. But this is about as far as it gets. Thanks, Will. I'll progress.
Well, that's a very good point. In this scheme, the theater is the big build in the project. The rest, again, you see there's the orange. It's like the other floor.
Ready?
Yep. Okay, when we go, this is the lower level of that scheme. And it starts very similarly with the weight room, cardio room, exercise room. The main difference is that the toilet and locker areas would be shared with the theater, so the actors have a place to change, etc. And these yellow rooms here are more theater support spaces for stagecraft, storage, etc. But otherwise it's the same. Here's the pickleball courts, the emergency management area, mechanical, electrical, and IT. Next slide. The next floor is the second floor, and again the blue is the community center, and what we have here are multi-purpose rooms. These can be meeting rooms, but there could be a special function that they need a room for. We've had Girl Scouts complaining they don't have space. We tend to invade the senior center all the time, but you know, recently we tried to have a meeting there. It was booked. we had to plan a different day, etc. It's not always available. And as the population grows in the village, more and more meeting space will be required. So that's kind of what we've done here. That's the atrium above with a balcony looking down. That, by the way, is really the only architectural caprice, for lack of another word, in here. I had to stick it in somewhere, but you know, I think that's an opportunity to do acknowledgement walls and items of that nature and really kind of define the essence of the building. The orange here is all Department of Recreation, and this wing here is all, I would say, performing arts oriented. We've got music rooms, we've got dance rooms, we've got aerobics. This is their admin area. And the thing to focus in on with this is that the people who'll be performing in that theater, whether it's your own children or grandchildren, they'll have a place to dance, play their instrument, leave their tuba here, whatever. So, you know, right now it's a real, I don't want to say struggle, but they're constantly changing rooms, et cetera, through it all, trying to make that happen. And this would be an opportunity to fix that. If we go to the other side, again, Department of Recreation, it's all in orange. This is more static, though, as opposed to dynamic in terms of movement. This is where we have science labs, computer labs. There's a team game room, and there's a team computer room. We also have Lego and robotics, which is very important in the village. These are science labs up here. And we also have very important painting, and they want to add sculpture. This would be a sculpture studio, and facing north are 2 painting studios. North light is ideal for painting. Next. Sorry, can you go back one? I always forget this. This is the chapel. And the chapel is a kind of a very precious spot in the building. It needs restoration work, but it's a magnificent space that we're hoping to preserve. So you would have access to the chapel here as well. It'd be non-denominational, we would imagine. And you know, you could also have other functions there that are non-religious in nature, like recitals. Okay, next. The next floor is largely dedicated in blue to the community center. We have a huge and fairly dynamic 2-story high reception room, and then more multi-purpose rooms. Because we have this special space that we could see it being rented out for special functions, or we would have a servery, co-room, etc., just to support this room. The rest of the space is right now not to be used. At one point we were investigating the possibility of doing a STEM center. I'm hoping in the future that will be resurrected in some manner. But right now that's not a function that legally we can pursue. Next. Again, this is devoted to the community center. This is the open ceiling above. It's a 2-story space. We have more multi-purpose rooms here. This area here has to do with internal gardening. And this is something that would not only support a STEM center, but it would support the community as a whole. There's a horticultural office and storage room, and all this is now opened above the chapel for that purpose. The fact that we're likely to lose the current community garden makes this, I think, of interest to a lot of people in the community. The way the building is oriented, it breaks into different pavilions at this point. We put in catwalks to link them, but these are roof plans, basically. And you have these outcrops, such as the clock tower up here, that you have to get to, etc. But it's largely storage space at this point. Okay. The last floor, the 5th floor, has a very dramatic space as well. And at one point I thought of a teen dance hall. There's a security area here for that as well. But again, it's another reception room, another multi-purpose room. It doesn't have to be dedicated to the teens. So we had some people were saying that's a great idea. Other people were opposed to it. We do have to think about the teen demographic in the village. But whether we do that or not, it's a good size room. Okay. It's a roof plan. You can go on. St. Paul's is a beautiful building. You can see the architecture is just exquisite. This is the rear facade. Most people are used to seeing the front facade, but this is in the back. And what we did here was, this is the athletic scheme where we built out here and here. So to enclose those athletic fields if we go in that direction. What we try to do is match the architecture of the building. This is a mirror image of what's on the wall behind it. That's just a concept. Another idea is to do a Renzo Piani type of modern metal and glass partition and make a modern statement in the back. That could also be addressed. Okay? This is the other option. If you do the athletic scheme, I'm sorry, the performing arts scheme, you would enter here to go into that theater. Here, I don't know if it's that clear in this, but it's actually open, and that's the pergola that would lead to that open courtyard. As far as the open courtyard, the fields, the theater, they're all interchangeable. You could have, instead of the courtyard, you could have a field on one side, the theater on the other, 2 fields, whatever. By the way, this is, to make this room accessible, we had to build a fire escape. So that would empty into the courtyard. Next slide. These are just sections showing the effect of this, breaking it down. So you see the building in the background. Okay. Again, another section through here. The other was the athletic scheme. This is the performance scheme. So this would be the stage. So it's an elevated stage, and it would be tiered seating. If you go to the next slide, you could see here, if we had the field as a basketball court, you start getting the effect of that with the nets. Next. And if it's a theater, it tiers down and you have, that's all right, and it ends up with the stage. Okay? Now, I promised you a turf field, so let me talk to you a little bit about that. This is the site plan of St. Paul's. And the building is E-shaped, as you can see. We're considering the demolition of the cottages. They're kind of falling apart anyway. And the creation of parking fields here. The parking field in this scheme would take into consideration the community garden and the cottage field area. That would add close to 440 spaces. We've added some additional spaces here, I think 69. But again, the whole parking scheme has to be addressed. That was an early study. Next. If we were to put a turf field, we spoke with sports people, what they needed, etc. They gave us a dimension of 115 yards by 60 yards. They wanted bleachers, and they wanted benches on the side. And this is an idea where it's oriented this way. And it kind of works off the building a little bit, which is kind of nice. But it also connects to the field house a little bit, which also seems to make sense. However, this really does eat into the parking situation, so we're going to have to be, if we were to go that route, we would have to investigate what to do about parking. Final. The other scheme we have is an existing field here, is convert this field into a turf field. It's right next to the baseball court. So it would have the same requirements as the other one. There's a row of pine trees here that would be retained. It would just work off it. So I kind of had these two schemes vetted initially. They were very well received. There was comment that maybe they don't need the ball field. That's all a conversation. We need that input. If the ball field were to go, we could slide it down or even locate it vertically. I didn't locate it vertically here because I didn't want to get too close to the houses. And I think that's it.